How can a man living in 600 BC predict the rise of Alexander the Great in 330 BC? How can a Jewish teenager in Babylon predict the military tactics of the Greek centuries before they were superpower? Skeptics hate Daniel chapter 2, verse 39. University professors hate this verse. Atheists hate this verse. They bend over backwards to prove it was written later. A fraud, a forgery, a fake. Why? Because it's too accurate. Because if this verse is real, then God is real. And if God is real, they have to answer to him. Daniel looks past the golden head of Babylon and sees two distinct empires rising from the dust of the future. He describes them not just by name, but by nature. He describes their economy, silver. He describes their military, bronze. And he describes their reach, rule the whole earth. Hello, and welcome back to Bible Talk. I'm your host, T. We are continuing our deep dive into the most important prophecy in the Bible. Today, we are looking at the silver chest and the bronze belly. We're going to see history written in advance. Please open your Bibles to Daniel chapter 2, verse 39. I read from the Christian Standard Bible. Daniel has just told King Nebuchadnezzar that he is the head of gold. Now he delivers the bad news. After you, there will arise another kingdom inferior to yours, and then another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule the whole earth. It's just one verse, but this one verse covers over 500 years of human history. Daniel is telling the king, you will lose. Then the guys who beat you will lose. Then the guys who beat them will lose. It's a conveyor belt of doom. Let's break down the metals because the precision here is staggering. Daniel says, after you, there will arise another kingdom inferior to yours. This is the chest and arms of silver. Notice the body parts. 2 arms connected to one chest. This perfectly describes the Medo-Persia Empire. It wasn't one nation, it was a dual alliance. The Medes on one arm and the Persians on the other, folded together to conquer Babylon in 539 BC. Just like the arms joined at the chest, these two nations joined to form one massive superpower under Cyrus the Great. Why did God choose silver to represent Persia? 2 reasons. Value versus strength. Silver is less valuable than gold, but it is harder. As we discussed in the last video, Persia was inferior to Babylon in absolute authority. The king was bound by law, but it was stronger militarily. It conquered more territory. Babylon was known for gold. Persia was known for silver, taxation. The Persian Empire was the first to standardize a tax system across the known world based on silver weight. They were masters of the bureaucracy and trade. God selected the metal that defined their economy. On the night of October 12th, 539 BC, while the Babylonian king, Belshazzar, was partying, we'll see that in Daniel chapter 5, the Medes and Persians diverted the Euphrates River, marched under the walls, and took the city without a battle. The head of gold was cut off. The chest of silver took over, just as Daniel predicted. Then Daniel sees further, and then another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule the whole earth. This is where the skeptics start sweating. The third kingdom is Greece. Why bronze? Because the Greek military machine, the phalanx, was literally the bronze kingdom. They wore bronze helmets. They wore bronze breastplates. They carried heavy bronze shields. Even their shin guards were bronze. When the sun hit a Greek army marching across the desert, it looked like a mountain of moving bronze. Daniel didn't say iron or wood. He chose the specific metal that defined their military technology. Notice the specific phrase, which will rule the whole earth. Babylon ruled the region. Persia ruled the Middle East and parts of Asia. But Greece, under Alexander the Great, they went everywhere. From Europe down to Egypt, across Persia, all the way to the Indus River and India. Alexander conquered the known world in roughly 12 years. No one had ever ruled the whole earth, the known civilized world, to that extent before. Daniel predicted the scope of the empire perfectly. Now we have to deal with the skeptic. If you go to a secular university and take a class on the Bible, the professor will tell you Daniel wasn't written in the 6th century BC. It was written in 165 BC during the Maccabean revolt. They argue that the prophecies are too accurate. They say no one can predict the future. Therefore, this must have been written after the Greeks had already risen. It's history disguised as prophecy. This is called the Maccabean hypothesis, or the late date theory. Here is my rebuttal. This theory falls apart if you look at the evidence. First, look at the Greek translation of the Old Testament. It was translated around 250 BC. If Daniel was written in 165 BC, how could it be included in a translation that was made nearly a century earlier? You cannot translate a book that hasn't been written yet. Second, look at Ezekiel's testimony. The prophet Ezekiel lived during the exile, contemporary with Daniel. In Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 14, he lists 3 most righteous men in history. Really, Jesus talking to Ezekiel. Noah, Daniel, and Job. If Daniel was a fake character invented in 165 BC, how did Ezekiel know about him in 580 BC? And why would God rank him with Noah and Job when he was talking to Ezekiel? It proves that Daniel was real, famous historical figure during the exile. Third is the Jesus card. This is the big one. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 15, Jesus says, "So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel," Jesus calls him a prophet. If Daniel was a fraud who wrote history after the fact and pretended it was a prediction, he wasn't a prophet. He was a liar. If you accept the late date theory, you are calling Jesus a liar or ignorant. I wouldn't do that. So as for me, I'm sticking with Jesus. Daniel wrote this in Babylon, 600 years before Christ, and God showed him the future. It also lines up with Revelation, which we'll get to later. Let's go back to the Bronze Kingdom. Rule the whole earth. That sounds glorious, doesn't it? Alexander the Great achieved it. He was a military genius. He never lost a battle. He conquered the world by age 30. But how did it end? Historians tell us that Alexander died at age 32 in Babylon, the very city where Daniel wrote this. Some say he died of fever, some say poison, some say alcoholism. But there is a legend that says before he died, he wept. Why? Because there were no more worlds for him to conquer. Think about the emptiness of that. He had the bronze belly, he had the whole earth, and he died a drunk. Miserable, broken young man in a foreign land. His empire shattered the moment he died. We'll see this in Daniel chapter 8 and 11. It's split into 4 pieces. Here is a spiritual lesson. The Bronze Kingdom had power, but it had no peace. The Silver Kingdom had money, but it had no permanence. The Gold Kingdom had glory, but it had no God. Here is my theological challenge for you. I want to challenge you today. What metal are you chasing? Are you chasing silver? Are you working 80 hours a week to build your chest of silver? Your savings account? Your 401k? Your real estate empire? Persia had all the silver in the world and it fell. Are you chasing bronze? Are you chasing power? Influence? Do you want to rule your world? Alexander conquered the whole earth and died crying because it wasn't enough. Mark chapter 8 verse 36, For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? Alexander is a poster child for this verse. He gained the bronze world and lost his soul. If you are building a kingdom of silver or bronze, you are building a statue that is destined to be smashed. The stone is coming. Stop investing in metals that rust. Start investing in the kingdom that lasts forever. Gold is soft, silver bends, bronze can be dented, but there is a metal that is harder than all of them. Daniel has covered Babylon, Persia, and Greece. But now he looks further. He sees a fourth kingdom, rising in the west. A kingdom that doesn't care about glory, doesn't care about art. It cares about domination. A machine made of iron. Daniel is about to predict the rise of the most brutal empire in human history. The empire that paved the roads for the gospel, and the empire that nailed the Messiah to a cross. Join me next time for the Iron Legs of Rome. Here are my 3 questions for you to help build your faith. Number 1, how does seeing the specific fulfillment of history, bronze and Greeks, build your faith in the Bible? Does it help you trust the parts of the Bible that haven't happened yet? Number 2, why do empires always think they will last forever? Why did Alexander think he was a god? And number 3, are you chasing silver and bronze, money and power, thinking it will satisfy you? If it didn't work for Alexander, it probably won't work for you. Until next time, you have a blessed day. Bye for now.